Welcome back to the Yarlow Home Cringe Show. I'm Katie Shahan, and I have with me Josh Swisher from Northface Construction. And today we are talking roofs. Hey, Josh.
Hey, Kate. How are you doing?
Not bad. You?
Doing great. Thanks for asking.
I love that. Thanks for being on our show. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely. Always happy to contribute in any way I can.
Perfect. So today we're going to ask you some maintenance tips and how to take care of our roofs and kind of how the whole exterior stuff goes. Maybe ask a little bit about insurance. And I know I have solicitors that come to my house and want to get on my roof, and I always don't know what to say to them. So maybe some tips on how that whole process works.
Mm-hmm.
So, but first, we're going to start off with my little game I like to call it's Fast Pitch, where I ask you questions for 1 minute, and you try and answer them. And then we'll see how many questions we get through so our listeners can get to know you a little bit. And yeah, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So we have 1 minute on the clock. Here we go. What areas do you service?
The Twin Cities Metro, Central Minnesota, and up-and-coming Western Wisconsin.
Ooh. What's your favorite movie?
The Dark Knight.
Oh. How old were you when you started in construction?
I was 15, and now I'm 32.
Have you ever fallen off of a roof?
I have, into a big pile of snow I had just shoveled off the roof.
So roofs are really slick in the wintertime, you're saying?
Yeah, a little bit.
Do you need a license to be a roofer?
You do in the state of Minnesota. You need to be licensed with the Department of Labor and Industry. Good
to know. So don't hire any unlicensed people.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever encountered an interesting animal while on the job?
Absolutely. Bats behind siding, and then also I've had Asian beetles and box elder bugs all over me 2.5 stories up.
Better you than me. I would have probably fallen off and broke something. Well, that's all the questions we got through in our minute. So thanks for sharing a little bit about us, and I hope that you don't have any more beetles or bats in your future.
Me either.
All right, so now let's talk about the home cringe moment. So in your experience, what has been the cringiest part in your industry, whether it's roofing, exterior maintenance, or remodeling? Yeah.
I'd say the most cringeworthy moments are when homeowners think they're getting a quality job and they pay for a full roof or project out of pocket, and it doesn't solve the problem they originally hired the contractor for. Case in point, shingles. Everyone thinks it's a commodity installation. Anyone can throw shingles on a roof, but actually it's part of a system of flashings, underlayments, and other details that can fail, which are the top reasons for leaks on houses. So the most cringeworthy things that we've ran into is where someone's paid tens of thousands of dollars for a brand new roof that actually doesn't solve their leaks and issues. And then we have to come in and fix that. So it's unfortunate. People a lot of times have to pay twice on things, but that's where bad contractors are the facilitators of that.
Oof, that is very cringy for me because I am fiscally tight.
Mm-hmm.
So having to pay twice for something does not sound like an idea.
Yeah.
And then have you seen homeowners put, there's those infomercials about like Gorilla Glue or something that you can put on your roof to prevent a leak? Have you seen that a lot too?
I've seen that. I would call a immediate temporary repair to solve the issue. I wouldn't call anything like that a long-term repair, although some people try to keep doing that over and over. And sometimes they sometimes they solve the problem, but long-term value add, I, as the professional roofer, would not recommend that stuff on a home if you really are trying to drive an economic value in your biggest investment in your life.
Right, right. And I do see whenever I'm a realtor too, so when I go and look at houses, one of the first places, if there's a chimney, we check the chimney because that seems to be where roofs leak the most. Is that a flashing issue?
Yes, that's a flashing issue. That's the metal that goes inserted into the chimney that ties into the shingle and underlayment system. So imagine that on or anywhere that shingles meet siding or anywhere where two roof pieces meet. That's where flashings are utterly important and need to be done properly and to minimum code compliance. And most roofers actually don't realize that replacing those is building code and it has to be done.
So you've seen some roofing companies you recycle and use the old flashings or gutter, systems before, and you're saying that it's not up to code?
It's not. It's not actually. Minimum code requires that you can't have any damaged or deteriorated flashing. So if there's 10 nail holes through a flashing, do you think that's sufficient enough to keep water out long term? No, most roofers will reuse that. What we do is we inspect it and make sure it's good. A lot of times when these homes are built brand new, they don't even nail through the flashing. So if you're lucky enough, it might be good to use again if nothing's damaged or deteriorated. But that's the kind of on-site margin call that needs to be made or dug into before you hire someone for the project.
That makes sense. Interesting. So speaking of roof and inspections, what if a homeowner were to go up on their roof, what would they be looking for that's like a key to the roof being damaged?
Well, I would look first and foremost, I always look at the metals on a roof. Like there's two different types of damage that really replace roofs in the state of Minnesota. Number one is storm damage. That's the biggest reason that roofs get replaced in Minnesota. We're a highly volatile storm market with hail, wind, tornadoes every once in a while. And then there's also maintenance and age, but both of those tie into loss of granules on the shingles. So an excessive loss of granules, I'd be looking in the gutters for a lot of granules in there because they tend to hang out in there or on the bottom of the downspouts get washed out. That could be an indication of end of life or hail damage, because hail, when it hits the shingle, will bruise it and then cause a release of the granules. And that's how we find hail damage, the bruising on the shingles. But I would look at the flashings as well, look for any rust, any exposed nail heads, or on the flashings, what first thing I look at is I look at the metal vents, if there are any, and look for dents on those. If there's dents in the vents, you probably have some hail damage to the shingles.
That does sound like a safe bet. Unless you have a kid who plays baseball and keeps hitting balls up on your roof.
Or you're under a tree that has walnuts or stuff like that.
Oh,
So,
very interesting. So we have to make sure our trees are trimmed.
Yep, trees are trimmed. You want to keep things away from the roof, from rubbing on it, stuff falling down. You want to keep debris off the roof because it can cause lichen and mold buildup, which can deteriorate the shingles long term.
Perfect. So you want your roof to remain dry. So in the
Yes.
wintertime, you mentioned that you fell off a roof when you were shoveling.
Yeah.
When do you know when to shovel your roof?
Well, I would say typically when we're shoveling roofs, it's because there's an underlying issue that's causing an ice dam or an excessive amount of buildup, which actually the causation of ice dams is not necessarily, it's not shingles, it's not roofing, it's the insulation and ventilation system in the home. So that's something that people can get a home energy audit from licensed contractors to find out. But what we do is we treat the symptoms of the original problem. So we'll come out if there's an ice dam, there's leaking. First and foremost, you need to get that snow off the roof so you're not fueling the leak. And then we'll steam ice dams off with our soft steamers.
Gotcha. So I was at a building one time and they had a commercial company come out to break up the ice dam. This was back, I don't know, 4 years ago. We had a terrible spring. Well, every spring, every February, we seem to get a lot of snow. But they just sprayed hot water all over the
Mhm.
ice dams, and then the parking lot turned into an ice skating rink, and everybody fell whenever we would go to our cars. It was
Oh,
hilarious, but painful. Is that
yeah. I wouldn't recommend just running hot water. That's why we have these high-end steamers that don't use a ton of water, and you literally slice through it like butter, and it
oh, I
doesn't
love
damage
it.
the shingles or cause an excessive buildup of ice and water, which seems like a huge liability on the contractor's end.
Right? So you're
Yeah.
saying that Northface Construction, in the summer, you do a lot of roofs and exterior
Mhm.
remodeling and storm damage
Yep.
restoration, and then in the
Yep.
wintertime, you help with, ice dams and,
Absolutely. Ice
winterization?
storms, excessive snow buildup, leaks. We love going out and helping people with leaks and repairs. It's the small jobs that make a difference, in people's lives and create a customer for life. So we like to come on out, assess leaks, do small repairs. We do offer a 5-year leak-free warranty on our repairs if we do the full system. So we like the small jobs. We don't turn those away like most contractors.
I love that. It's nice having a roofer that you know and, will give you real feedback and not someone who just knocks on your door and says, "Hey, can I check out your roof?" "Oh, guess what? You have a problem." And you're like, "Well, how
Yeah.
do you know that?"
Well, in their defense, they do have there are predictive models. There's NOAA storm reports, and
Mhm.
if people don't know, they don't know. I do know a lot of very very good companies, locally reputable, that do get most of their business from door knocking,
Oh,
and I
great.
would trust them to do my own house too. So
Good.
I wouldn't knock on the knockers too hard,
Yes.
but you
Well,
gotta
now I
vet
feel
them
like
properly.
I have more information that I can ask them more clarifying questions when they say I need a new roof,
Yes,
because I feel like you gave me a lot of information today that's super useful.
good. I'm glad to hear that.
So, just so our listeners remember, you're Josh with North Face Construction, and what's your website, Josh?
My website is northfaceconstruction.com, all spelled out, and our phone number is 763-433-2269. We always answer the phone, and we show up for our estimates.
I love that. Perfect. Well, thanks for having being on our show today and helping our listeners learn more about roofs.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thanks for having me today.
Thanks, Josh at North Face Construction. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, bye.
Bye.